the Honda Civic. One of the most reliable cars money can buy. That's not a theory, that's not an opinion, that's a proven fact. Top 10 most reliable cars in the world today, every single one of them is Japanese. Now, it has quite a quirky design, this. In fact, it looks more like a French car than a Japanese car, I think, in many ways. But it certainly doesn't drive like one, and it certainly doesn't run like one. Now, let's start with the basics. The first thing is the rear view vision, what you have of it, is very much obstructed by a great big spoiler fin that goes through the back. Now, that's probably about an inch or two wide, no, a couple of inches wide. It takes a lot of the vision out. They do sort of compensate for it with the side mirrors, which are very large, and we like large mirrors. This has a digital speedo display, which means you can basically tell what speed you're going a lot faster than looking at a dial. And a rather groovy looking rev counter, which is illuminated by LEDs and the blue lights in the center, which is not obstructed by the steering wheel, which is nice. Got your fuel gauge on the right and your gear selector on the left. All the buttons are laid out in a very simplistic form, which is good. If there's anything that's looking a bit congested, I would say maybe along the radio controls, but they're not that bad. The automatic gear shift lever is in a nice position. The driving position is not too bad either, actually. It's a nice, they feel a little bit high, I think, but that might be just the adjustments I have at the moment. Now, you don't hear a lot of the engine when you're sitting in the car, it has to be said. It's a very quiet car. You do feel quite insulated. Not quite the Volt experience that you get from a Mercedes or a Bentley. If I accelerate now, that soon changes. So it is a noisy car, and a lot of that noise is coming from the transmission tunnel, which is a no-no. So it basically sounds like the floor pans are too thin and lacking in insulation and soundproofing of some kind. The steering is very responsive indeed. I can really feel this car moving millimeter by millimeter. There's absolutely no hesitation there at all, and it feels like it really wants to be driven enthusiastically and chucked into the corners. But the noise, oh dear, this car sounds dreadful. This is certainly not an enthusiast's car. To be fair, if I was driving this car around town, civil area, having to listen to that noise all the time when I pulled away from roundabouts, etc., etc., would just drive me potty. It's not a nice sound, and it would soon begin to wear very thin. Oh, I have to say that's probably one of the worst yet. I mean, obviously you're not going to drive kicking down all the time, but it just gives you an idea of what you are going to be experiencing, and my word, that does sound dreadful. Now, that might anger a lot of Honda fans, but I have to be totally fair with you. I believe in saying a spade's a spade. A review is a review. The car makes a racket, it sounds dreadful. This is one of the reasons why you should not go for an automatic gearbox when you have a small engine car. The engine just has to rev so much to get going. It's a waste of time. Steering wheel feels okay, but the rest of the car looks a bit cheap and plasticky, to be fair. It does all this pseudo brushed steel. It's very, very cheap. But you don't buy Hondas for their build quality, you buy them for their reliability, and where these folks can't get it right with this part of the car, the interior, they're certainly getting it right on the mechanical sense. So if you're thinking about buying one of these, reliability is definitely not going to be an issue, and that is coming from a used car salesman who's sold plenty of these. They just don't break down. But whether or not they're going to give you the luxury that you require from a car, I would have to say no, they don't seem to tick the box there. But we're going along now 50 miles an hour, and that engine I'm not hearing anymore because obviously I'm not accelerating, but just the wind travelling over the top of the car, it's quite a serene experience. I will say one thing, it's very hard this though. I'm going across every bump and it's dudum dudum dudum. So this is not a pleasant car to drive, it has to be said. It feels like it wants to be a sports car, but it's not. It's got very sporty steering. It feels sporty, but it lacks it in power. And even the shocks are saying it's a sports car, but it's not. Thinking about buying one of these, well, if you're looking for a comfortable ride, you're going to want to go for something with softer suspension. And if you're thinking about a sporty version, then make sure you get a sporty engine, a manual gearbox, because otherwise you're going to have two worlds here clashing and they're not forming a harmony at all. I'm not really liking this car much at the moment, and I don't want to be biased. The reason why it's not ticking the boxes is because it's not blending well. There's no harmony in this car. It's got the wrong engine and it's got the wrong feel for that cc of motor. So when you're thinking about buying one of these, bear that in mind, because you've got to get the right balance, otherwise it's awkward, which is what this particular car is. If you get the balance right, you're going to have a very good car. If you get the balance wrong, well, listen to